18 years. That's how long a mother waited for her daughter to come home. 18 years of unanswered questions, sleepless nights, and a community that never forgot the little girl who vanished one ordinary morning on her way to the school bus. And then, in 2009, 2 campus officers at UC Berkeley saw something that dozens of trained investigators had missed for nearly 2 decades. What they discovered didn't just solve a cold case. It exposed one of the most catastrophic failures in the history of the American parole system. This is the story of Jaycee Lee Dugard. June 10, 1991. Meyers, California. A quiet mountain community of about 5,000 people nestled in the Sierra Nevada, 5 miles southwest of South Lake Tahoe, where neighbors knew each other by name and children played freely outside. It was near the end of the school year. Summer was close. 11-year-old Jaycee Lee Dugard walked to her school bus stop just a few dozen meters from her front door, the same routine she followed every morning. Her stepfather, Carl Probin, dropped her off and turned back toward the house to continue his morning chores. What happened next took only seconds. A gray sedan pulled up alongside Jaycee. A man got out, pressed a stun gun against the 11-year-old girl, and shoved her into the back seat. The car drove away. Carl Probin, still in his yard, saw it happen. He jumped on his bike and chased the vehicle down the street. But the car was gone before he could get close. He stood there staring at the empty road, then ran inside to call 911. Several witnesses saw parts of the abduction. Nobody got a license plate. Nobody had enough detail to give investigators a usable lead. And the man behind the wheel of that gray sedan, a registered sex offender on federal parole for kidnapping and rape, drove 190 miles west to his home in Antioch, California, with Jaycee hidden in the back seat. His name was Phillip Garrido, and the justice system already knew exactly who he was. In 1976, Phillip Garrido had kidnapped Catherine Calloway Hall in Nevada, tied her up, held her in a shed, and sexually assaulted her for hours before being arrested. He was sentenced to 50 years in federal prison and a life sentence in state court, a sentence designed to keep him away from society permanently. He served 11 years. After his release in 1988, his victim, Catherine Hall, proactively contacted his parole agent to warn that Garrido was continuing dangerous behavior and needed closer supervision. The parole agent noted in the file that her concern was the result of hysteria. 3 years later, Phillip Garrido kidnapped Jaycee Lee Dugard. Garrido took Jaycee to 1554 Walnut Avenue, Antioch, a suburban home in California's East Bay. From the street, it looked like an ordinary property. A house, a yard, a family going about their lives. But behind that house, hidden by dense trees, a high fence, and tarps deliberately placed to block any view from outside, Garrido had built a hidden compound. Multiple tents and sheds spanning roughly 900 square feet. A concealed world that Jaycee would not leave for 18 years. She was isolated completely. No contact with the outside world. No electricity, no running water, no school, no medical care. Just Garrido and his wife Nancy, who had been behind the wheel of the gray sedan that morning in Meyers. Garrido did not maintain control through physical force alone. Over years, he constructed a system of total psychological control, isolation, economic dependence, and a fanatical religious framework in which he cast himself as a prophet chosen by God. For a child taken at 11, placed into that environment with no outside reference point, no trusted adult, and no way out, that system was suffocating and inescapable. In 1994, Jaycee was 14 years old when she gave birth to her first daughter, Garrido's child, inside that compound, with no doctor, no hospital, and no medical support. In 1997, she gave birth to a second daughter under the same conditions. Both girls grew up in the backyard. No birth certificates, no school, no legal record of their existence. Garrido told anyone who asked that they were his granddaughters. While Jaycee and her daughters lived in that compound, the federal parole system was conducting routine supervision of Phillip Garrido. Between 1999 and 2009, parole officers visited 1554 Walnut Avenue 60 times. They knocked on the front door, spoke to Garrido, noted in their files that he was compliant with parole conditions, and left. Not once, in 60 visits, Did any parole officer walk into the backyard? This was not a minor procedural gap. A full property inspection is a basic requirement when supervising a sex offender with a documented history of kidnapping and holding victims. Garrido's file alone should have made a backyard check mandatory on every single visit. Instead, 60 times over 10 years, officers stood at the front door of a man they knew had kidnapped and imprisoned a woman before, and walked away without checking the property behind them. In 2006, a neighbor reported to Antioch police that people were living in tents in Garrido's backyard and that children's voices could be heard coming from the covered area. Police responded, spoke to Garrido at the front of the house, and left without checking the backyard. In 2008, the parole agency conducted its own investigation after receiving information about Garrido's unusual behavior. Investigators came to the house, questioned him, and again, no one checked the compound. Jaycee and her 2 daughters were a few meters behind that gate every single time. On August 24, 2009, Phillip Garrido arrived at the UC Berkeley campus with 2 teenage girls, his daughters with Jaycee, to request permission to hold a religious event for his group, which he called God's Desire. The first person to receive him was Lisa Campbell, manager of the UCPD events office. She didn't need a background check to know something was wrong. Garrido's behavior was erratic and unsettling. The 2 girls with him appeared withdrawn and submissive in a way that didn't sit right. Campbell scheduled a follow-up meeting for the following afternoon and immediately reported her concerns to Officer Ally Jacobs of the UC Berkeley Police Department. Jacobs ran a background check. Garrido was a registered sex offender on federal parole for kidnapping and rape. His file showed no record of children. On August 25th, Jacobs and Campbell met with Garrido again, keeping the meeting calm and routine to prevent him from fleeing before parole authorities could act. After the meeting, Jacobs contacted parole officer Eddie Santos directly, informing him about the 2 girls, Garrido's behavior, and everything the 2 officers had observed over both days. Santos immediately summoned Garrido to the parole office in Concord and required him to bring everyone with him. On August 26, 2009, Garrido arrived at the Concord parole office with Nancy Garrido, the 2 teenage girls, and a young woman he introduced as his niece, a woman he called Alyssa. Investigators separated everyone for questioning. During interrogation, Phillip Garrido confessed. He had kidnapped Jaycee Lee Dugard on June 10, 1991. The young woman sitting in the interrogation room confirmed her real identity. The 11-year-old girl who had stood waiting for her school bus in Meyers, California on a June morning 18 years earlier was now a 29-year-old woman, speaking her own name to law enforcement for the first time in nearly 2 decades. That night, Jaycee and her daughters were taken to a safe location. The FBI arranged a phone call between Jaycee and her mother, Terry Probin, who had spent 18 years refusing to stop believing her daughter was alive. The first time the 2 had heard each other's voices in 18 years, 2 months, and 16 days. The following morning, Terry flew to Northern California. She met her daughter in person. She met 2 granddaughters she had never known existed. Her sister, Tina Dugard, described the reunion to the press. The smile on my sister's face was as wide as the ocean. Her oldest daughter was finally home. Phillip Garrido was sentenced to 431 years to life in prison. Nancy Garrido received 36 years to life, the maximum possible under California law at the time the crimes were committed. California settled Jaycee's lawsuit against the state for $20 million, the largest settlement in state history for parole system failures. It was a legal acknowledgement that what happened to Jaycee Dugard was not only the crime of 2 individuals. It was the product of a system that was warned, that had every tool it needed, and that chose 60 times over not to open a gate. In 2011, Jaycee published A Stolen Life, a memoir about her 18 years in captivity. It became a bestseller not because it dwelled on suffering, but because it told the truth about survival in a way only someone who had lived it could. She founded the Jaycee Foundation, supporting families and survivors of abduction, with a particular focus on helping people navigate the long process of recovery that standard legal and medical systems are not built to handle. No one had the right to expect that of her. She chose it anyway. This case leaves 3 things every one of us should carry. First, when victims warn about dangerous people, listen. Catherine Hall warned Garrido's parole agent years before he kidnapped Jaycee. That warning was dismissed as hysteria. 3 years later, a child was taken from a bus stop. Second, supervision without accountability is theater. 60 checks at the front door of a man with a documented history of imprisoning victims accomplished nothing. Procedure must mean something more than showing up and leaving. Third, you don't need a warrant to trust your instincts. Lisa Campbell and Ally Jacobs had no special forensic tools and no tip from an informant. They had the sense that something was wrong, and they acted on it. If you see a child who looks afraid, an adult with strange and excessive control over those around them, a situation that doesn't feel right, report it. You don't need to be certain. That's not your job. Your job is to say something. If the story stayed with you, leave a comment below. And if you're new here, subscribe. There are more stories like this one coming.